Let's begin by getting your reaction to Man City's 2-1 defeat against Newcastle in the Premier League last weekend. City entered this match in high spirits after winning their last four games in all competitions before the international break. But in the end, two goals from Harvey Barnes, either side of a Ruben Diaz equaliser, helped Newcastle claim all 3 points and condemn City to their fourth league loss of the season. Stephen, how would you sum up Man City's performance against Newcastle, and what were the main things that you've taken away from that defeat at St James's Park?
Um, yeah, sort of frustrating, sort of expected, sort of unexpected. Many things at the same time, really. I look now we've slept on it a little bit as City fans. I'm just I won't. I didn't lose too much sleep over it, largely because I wasn't that surprised by it. And I do feel it's one of those games that was sort of balanced on a knife edge. That could have gone either way very easily. We were chatting just beforehand, saying that if if City scored any of those chances, if Haaland puts the ball in the back of the net when Doku, I think Doku goes, someone cut it back anyway. O'Reilly actually,
Yeah, yeah,
and if Foden puts the sitter into the back of the net that Shirky, the 1-2 Shirky laid on a plate for him. If City get the penalty that maybe they should have deserved, lots of ifs, buts, and maybes, and all, I understand. But the point I'm making is that's how football can be sometimes, you know. Guardiola said afterwards, "It is what it is," and I think that's probably the best way to describe this game. Those goals go in, or those chances go in, turn into a goal. I think City get the first goal. They probably run away with, not run away with it, but they definitely, I think they win it. I really do believe that. I think the momentum shifts. I think the City's confidence was pretty good in terms of creating chances in the first half. I think Newcastle were always going to carry on with that sort of uh, combative style and be in City's faces, even if they went a goal behind. But I still think City would have turned it around. And I think them scoring first, getting that momentum, even though City equalised, I do think St James's Park believed at that point, and they were a side very much up for this. And I think some of City's deficiencies were shown. I, I could go into that a little bit more if you want me
yeah,
to. I don't know.
yeah, can
Well,
do. Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
and I think it's very obvious that where City do lack a little bit of finesse, really, I guess. They are definitely not fully suited yet to playing teams of Newcastle's stature. And Newcastle only had six players on international duty, and they were a team very much ready for this game. You could tell they wanted to run, 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 and dominate physically. And so many of City's chances conceded came from just aggressive, quick counter attacks from a Newcastle side, sort of built to bully Manchester City. City are getting stronger and more physical, but they're still not fully there yet, competing centrally. When you look at Newcastle's midfield of Joe Linton, Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, they're all physical. I won't use the word because it's a swear word, but begins with B, ends with D. That's the best way I can describe it. They are built, and they are all just so tough and they're so aggressive. And I don't think City could match that. Nico Gonzalez has been excellent this season, but he's on his own there in terms of physicality. When you've got Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden, both 5'7", not really known for their combative midfield styles, they couldn't really keep up with him. And I think that's what City have to get better at. It was the same against Villa when you had Kamara, Onana, McGinn, Morgan Rodri, all these people who can run and bully you a little bit. We're not quite good at that yet. And I think that's where City show a little bit of weakness that'll have to be refined via future transfers, maybe Rodri returning and so on. And you also can see maybe a sort of lack of I guess sort of like killer mentality from some of the squad. I guess like in previous years gone by, someone like a De Bruyne would have been like, "You kick me, I'll kick you," and Rodri would have been there. "You kick me, I'll kick you," and I'll also beat you because I'm better at football than you. And there's an element of quality and also that sort of winners mentality that I think some of these players have definitely got, and I think they're going to learn that. But you started to see the sort of uh, the rough edges of this side a little bit in a game like that, where we can get drawn into a dogfight a bit too easily. Whereas in previous years, you get drawn into a dogfight. De Bruyne loves it, man. Like, he loved it. Rodri loved it. And they would have just bullied you in the way that you bullied them, but while also scoring from 20 yards into bottom corner or picking out that pass to Oscar Bob a couple of years back. That's what City had, but I don't think we're quite there yet. I am not concerned. I think City are definitely on an upward trajectory, and it's very obviously a rebuild. And these bumps in the roads are going to happen when we play a side that exposes the weaknesses that we've got a little bit more aggressively. And not many sides, in fact, there's probably no side in England that is like Newcastle on a night like that, a cold winter's night, when they're up for it. And they're always up for it against City, and they're rested, and they've got more or less their strongest 11 available. Maybe one or two players missing there, but they had the fullbacks back, they had the midfield. Maybe Anthony Gordon aside, it was pretty much their strongest 11, more or less. They were just all for it, and City couldn't quite match it. And having said that, as I said, still, it's score that first goal when we create the chances, we probably still win it anyway. So it's one of those things, one of those days where it could have gone either way. We were on the losing end of it. Lots of room for improvement. We have to be better on the ball. If we can't outfight them. You got to outpass them. And I still think City are a little bit sloppy at that. No, we had more possession, but there's still lessons to be learned. Shirky will learn this league, but he was culpable of a few little fancy flicks and tricks here, which I love as a football purist, but fundamentally, it's just not a smart idea at St James's Park right now. And I think he'll learn that. I think the only way to learn it is actually being on the pitch. And you look around with the rest of the side. Not too many had a bad day, really. Haaland scores, Foden scores, and it's a different game. The midfield's a bit exposed. I don't think. Yeah, Donnarumma made some great saves, but he also was pretty poor on the ball, and it didn't really help us that way. So swings and roundabouts through the entire game. But it's Newcastle away. They're capable of doing this, and I know they're not a great side, Newcastle, but they're a unique side. And when they're in that form and that confident, and they're always up for beating us. They're always up for trying to beat us. Not beat us such a long time, but they are an incredibly hard team to play against, and it was just didn't go our way.
Yeah, frustrating afternoon for City in the end, and defeat has seen them slip to third now in the table. They're 7 points behind leaders Arsenal, who of course beat Spurs in the North London derby on Sunday. What do you think, Stephen, then are the sort of the title implications for City after that loss, and how big of an opportunity was missed for City to sort of keep within touching distance of Arsenal?
It's really hard as a fan because we're all emotional. It's really hard to not go up and down like you're on a roller coaster because you beat Liverpool 3-0 and you're in great form and you think, you know what? You see Arsenal drop points. And 2 weeks later, Arsenal batter them. We lose to Newcastle, batter Spurs. We lose to Newcastle, and you back down again in terms of your belief. I guess I feel probably the same as I did at the start of the season. I think City's best chances to win the league probably do lean on Rodri being available. And I think because he's our best player and he's the best player in the league when he's fully available. And he's not. He's just simply not. And I think it's very obvious that he won't be fully available for a long time. And when he is, his best form is probably still a while off. And that's not a complaint. It's just the reality of the situation. But we didn't really know that until we experienced it. And it's at the start of the season, you hope he's going to be by this point firing or whatever. But he's barely got going yet, and it's about to be December. And you got to presume it's going to be February, March before he's looking like himself. Who knows? It might even be longer than that. So bearing that in mind, that was always the asterisk for me about City's title challenge. I actually, when I was looking at my old season predictions, I felt City was second with an asterisk next to it saying, but if Rodri plays 35 games starting, we probably could win the league. But that's not happening. And the reason Rodri's relevant is because he's Rodri. He's absolutely brilliant, but he's also the heart of this Manchester City side. He's also the steel of this Manchester City side. He's also the best player that we've got. Especially after De Bruyne left, if Rodri doesn't play much, you've lost De Bruyne, you've lost sort of Rodri. There's a lot. I lost Gundogan's experience. Kyle Walker's moved. I know he wasn't playing much, but you start to list all the names that have left. And I know Rodri's still here, but if he's not playing, he's not really there. Maybe it's just too much. And while obviously Nico Gonzalez is getting better and Reinders will adapt, games like yesterday, you can see what they're the ones that you have to sort of win to maintain a challenge. That's what we did in previous years. And that's what you need a Rodri there for. And you needed him there for the Aston Villa game. You needed him there for the Spurs game. And those games, we can't rely on Rodri yet. And it does feel like a lot of the season does sort of it will be defined around his fitness. I think that sounds quite dramatic, but it's how I feel. Like this is a really talented bunch of players, and a lot of them are winners. A lot of them have won an awful lot of stuff. But there's also I would say it's an undercurrent of naivety still to this Manchester City side. And when you look around, and a lot of them experienced, but I wouldn't say they're experienced in the way that the City have been in the past 10 years. For example, Doku's won the Premier League, but he's not experienced in the way that Mahrez was. He's not experienced in the way that Sterling was, or Sane was. He's not experienced in the way that a lot of winners have been at Manchester City. And then you say Nunes has won the Premier League, but he's not. It's not the same as the experience that other players had in the past. So those two are starters right now. O'Reilly isn't experienced. Of course, Vardy's won a league, but he's only won one. So he's not like he's Kompany or anything like that. Donnarumma's Donnarumma, but he's still new to the league. And then, he's still a new cog in this machine. Then you go to Nico Gonzalez. He's not an experienced winner. Bernardo Silva, he's in his last legs, really. He's great, but he's about to move on. I know he's got the experience still, so that's sort of relevant to my point. Foden, he's in that category of experience. Haaland is too. And then you go out wide and you've got, the young wingers, Savinho, Doku, Oscar Bob. Marmoush as well hasn't got that elite level experience, I would argue. And the point I'm making it, Reinders is the same. I know they played in big competitions, but they're not winners in the way that Gundogan, De Bruyne, all these people are. And the point I'm making here is that you can tell, even though there's quality there in Haaland, Donnarumma, Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva, Diaz, Vardial, there's also, more than half that squad is still, they would be the backups for the great Manchester City sides because they're not quite there yet. And even though I think they've got a lot of potential, the potential's the word. I think there's a City side. There is a lot of ability there, a lot of promise, and a lot of talent, but it still needs time, and it still needs knitting together, and it still needs a Rodri, the glue in the center of the pitch, someone like that. And I think if we have people of his qualities out, we're going to notice it quite a lot. Whereas previously, Gundogan would step in, he'd be absolutely fine, And I feel that this is what the City side, misses, and I think they're very capable of doing something very impressive, and maybe doing something special. And who knows, they might do something wonderful. But I think it's too erratic, and I think Guardiola would appreciate that. And I think he'd probably say the same. It is too erratic right now. It's like the highs could be very high, but we're also capable of really sobering lows, like the Villa game, like the Newcastle game, Brighton, Spurs. We either seem to win or lose. By the way, that's what it feels like. I'm gonna. I don't even know if that's even true. Like, how many have we drawn this season in the Premier League?
In the
One. There we
league,
go. There we go. We've drawn one game in the Premier League. So
yeah.
City win or lose, like there's hot days and we're really hot, or there's cold days, and I think that to me I actually don't mind that weirdly. I think it says, that this City side is blowing really hot, but then they all could be really cold because of that inexperience, what I'm on about. But that will lessen. That gap will get smaller between the two extremes through time, through repetition, through experience, through a settled 11 as the new players adapt and all that kind of stuff. So it's fine. It is what it is. I just my expectations as a result are sort of tempered. But it doesn't mean City can't catch Arsenal. It doesn't mean they can't win the Champions League. It's just not as likely as previously. But having said that, who knows where we could be by March? But this side could evolve massively. It's already so much different, in my opinion, than it was at the start of the season. So.
Yeah, and if we go back to Rodri, why do you think maybe City are missing him in your views as much as they are? What is maybe Gonzalez not offering that Rodri would if he was in the team at the moment?
It's not like Gonzalez is doing anything wrong. It's just he's not as good as Rodri. Rodri is you think of the attributes of Rodri. For one, he's supremely gifted. Creatively, like that's one aspect that we miss. He's an absurd creative talent. He could be a world class number 10. I maintain that he can play 6, 8, 10 world class level. Like he's a great scorer of great goals. And he's a great creator. Like he's a wonderful passer. He will smack in the top corner from 20 yards. He can skip past people and dribble as well. And his pass selection is perfect. He's also a metronome. He's one thing City are missing is a guy who has 100 passes every single game. And that Rodri is that. That's what Guardiola still wants, very obviously. Nico Gonzalez has done a cracking job. But when we've got a keeper of Donnarumma who isn't quite maybe as good as, was not even close to the level of Ederson on the ball, you probably need Rodri, who is, the absolute fulcrum, the metronome, the ticking heartbeat of this Manchester City side. You need that. And what the difference between what Rodri does and what Nico Gonzalez does, and Rodri is very best, is it's just the little fundamentals, his positioning, his strength, his experience, his knowledge of the league, his pass selection and variety is better. He uses his body better. He slows things down better when he needs to. He speeds things up better when he needs to. It's very like, look, I don't have the exact quantifiable data to prove it, but it's one of those things that you can just sort of feel, like he's just a little bit better than everything Nico Gonzalez does while adding more going forward as well. And it's a lot of things like you see occasionally Nico Gonzalez still sort of get caught in the ball a little bit more. Rodri is very best, just doesn't get caught in the ball. It very rarely happens. He can also just give it in. He can just give it out a little bit better. If you're playing like Arsenal, you play in Newcastle, Rodri doesn't get bullied by anyone. And that is a combination of his physicality and also a combination of his mentality and his experience. Like a lot of getting bullied off the ball is just poor positioning, and you're not anticipating, the press or the challenge coming in. And that's what Rodri brings. And having aura and experience is a big thing in football. You know, like I think Rodri, you look around and you see Donnarumma in goal, you see Haaland at the top, and you see Rodri in the middle. You can do anything. You feel 6 foot tall, even if you're 5'7", because you're surrounded by giants. And I think that genuinely helps. And as much as Nico Gonzalez is going to be a cracking player, he just isn't one yet. He's a very good player, and Rodri is the best of the best. And the best way to be a world class player is train alongside world class players and play alongside them. They drag you up to their level because they are win or die kind of people. And the more people you have that in your squad, the better you're going to be. And right now, he was the best in the world at it. He's just not there. And there's no way that that will have a net negative effect on the side.
Yeah, no doubt that Rodri's absence has, had a negative effect on City, and they would want him back as soon as possible. Guardiola has said that as well. He wants him back as soon as possible. In terms of the title, then to sort of summarize this point, where how optimistic are you that City can continue to challenge with Arsenal? That there's a 7 point gap at the moment. It's only 12 games, roughly a third of the way through. Is it Arsenal to lose in your opinion then at the moment?
Yeah, it is. I think Arsenal. Look, it's not impossible. I understand what City have achieved, and it's very possible. In fact, it's November. Ultimately, there's still an awful lot of football to play. So I'd be silly as a City fan given everything we've witnessed. I think it is fair to say that it is a different Manchester City, though. And you can't always go back to the watering hole and keep getting more and more out of it. Eventually, at some point, that we can chase you, we can chase you. It's going to start working. And I think very obvious looking, at where City were last season, given the fact we've lost 4 games already this season in the Premier League, there are still very obvious weaknesses in this Manchester City side. A lot of potential, of course, but there are a lot of big weaknesses. And you look over at Arsenal, and you just don't see many, and like it is theirs to lose. Liverpool aren't quite there. Chelsea are putting up a bit of a fight, but I don't think they've got the experience or quality. And you look at Arsenal, football loves a narrative. And you look at Eze returning, there's that the boy who returned, done good, kind of that I believe stuff like that makes a massive difference. Like that's a feel good factor for the Arsenal fans. They'll believe it's true because they'll believe their London boy returning as a fan, scoring a hat trick in the North London derby. They'll feel, oh, it is actually ours. And when you start to feel that as a side, as a fan base, you start to believe it, you feel it. Then you see City losing the same day. But then you look at the experience they've got now. They have been beaten and beaten and beaten and beaten down like constantly in a title race. They're so close each time, and then they just picked by City a couple of times and Liverpool as well, and they will they'll feel like they're desperate to win it. They're absolutely desperate to win it. And you look at the depth that they've got now as well, and like it's just really good. It's really strong. There is no obvious weaknesses. They could be maybe a little bit better, in a couple of areas, but largely, you look at like the bench depth they've got now. It's really strong. It's also physically strong, physically impressive. It's built for the modern Premier League. They don't see many goals. They're just a really good side with no obvious weaknesses. And they got a little bit of magic now with Eze and people like that. Of course, they've got different ways to get at people. They've got the defensive solidity that City had, maybe a few years back with the treble season. I'm not sure they've got that far, but it reminds me of that in terms of the sheer brute force of that City side. I just think it's theirs to lose. I think they're more consistent. That's fine. As I said, I've made my peace with City being a team that challenges that could win, but I think the odds are still very much stacked in Arsenal's favour because they're just further along where they want to be than Manchester City.